In 2019, one of the most dangerous cases in the history of the American judiciary was closed with the announcement of the end of Jeffrey Epstein inside his cell. But was the case really closed? Or was the official story just a cover for something deeper? Because investigations proved that the surveillance cameras were disabled in a high-security prison? They proved the mysterious disappearance of the recordings, confirmed by the medical examiner. His name was linked to the most controversial cases in American history. And many other things that we will talk about today, because today we will open the black box to reveal the evidence that points to a completely different scenario. Is Epstein still alive? Is he living? Who benefits from keeping the secrets hidden until 2026? We'll discuss this after the break. Stay with us. Dear viewers, peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. Welcome to our program today in this renewed meeting, God willing, from the series of episodes of Opinion Today. Dear viewers, we dedicate this episode to this topic, or this issue that has become the issue of the whole world, the issue that attracts everyone's attention in the world today. The case of the American Jewish billionaire Epstein, the case of the greatest power and forces the world has known in modern history. The case of this mysterious figure who overnight transformed from an obscure poor man working as a math teacher to one of America's wealthy elite with very extensive connections to the American elite and the global elite. So today we will talk about the changes that the Epstein case went through and how he exploited years of criminal activity with the full complicity of the deep state in America. And we will show you with evidence his connection to the Israeli Mossad and how in reality he did not commit suicide and did not die as the official story claims today, but was smuggled out just like previous Mossad agents and partners were smuggled and rescued in the past. So first, everyone needs to know exactly who this person is. Who is Epstein? The first thing we find is that he comes from a Jewish immigrant family. His family originally came from Eastern Europe and migrated and settled in America. We find that Epstein's father worked as a gardener in the gardens of New York. He lived in one of the neighborhoods of Brooklyn, New York, which is considered middle class. So, up to this point, everything seems normal, but we find that in the 1970s, Epstein began his professional career by working at a private school as a mathematics teacher. Even though he didn't finish his studies and didn't obtain any university degree. He studied at a private institute for mathematics, but he didn't finish his studies and didn't get the degree. And he started working as a mathematics teacher at this private school. Alright, so today everyone needs to pay attention because all the information I'm going to talk about today will eventually lead you to how this strange character was created. This private school where Epstein worked is located in Manhattan, and of course everyone knows Manhattan and who lives in Manhattan. Only wealthy children. So here, while he was at this school, Epstein was strange in his behavior. According to the testimonies of former students, because they talked about this, he was odd. He paid special attention to the girls, I mean the female students. And the strange thing was that he used to attend the school parties organized by the students, just so everyone knows. The students organized their own parties. Of course, he was the only teacher who attended these parties. He was very keen, all his focus was on attending such parties. And who is Epstein? So here we need to pay close attention. I mean, such behavior cannot go unnoticed by the students' parents. It must reach the parents and guardians of the students here in this school. As I said, we're talking about the wealthy of New York, about America's rich. So, as is the case in all American schools, regular meetings were held with the parents. During these meetings, there was someone from the Israeli Mossad who was observing Epstein's behavior and personality traits during these meetings. So they came to the conclusion that this person couldn't remain just a teacher at this school. So the first step they took was to establish a kind of friendship with him, meaning one of the students' parents made direct contact with him. The second step they took was to have him expelled from this school. They made the school decide to fire Epstein from his job. Why did they say that? Because the school wasn't convinced of Epstein's teaching abilities. So what happened here? Did Epstein become unemployed? Here came his third job. They offered him a job at an investment company. That is, the person who is the guardian of one of the students and owns an investment company offered him a job at this company. So from here, this is where the story of Epstein's recruitment began. Because after he started working at this company for no more than 4 years, he became a partner in this company. He even started owning luxury properties, and he built relationships with all kinds of celebrities, from artists and politicians to media figures and so on, to the point that later on he also owned a private jet and bought mansions. All of this happened within 4 or 5 years, or 4 years. He stayed like this until the 1990s, the time when he decided to buy this island. Devil's Island, one of the United States Virgin Islands, where he built this empire that everyone talks about today, the empire of prostitution, the rape of minors, and so on, including satanic ritual parties. And what strange things were happening on this island? This island was attended by the global elite, including world leaders, politicians, top businessmen, and others. Okay, the thing that everyone should know is that the Epstein case didn't just appear today, and it didn't start in 2019. Since 1990, so pay close attention to this very long period. Since 1990, we're talking about almost 30 years. 30 years. And complaints kept pouring into the American authorities about Epstein's crimes, but to no avail. This is so everyone understands the extent of the influence Epstein had, so everyone knows the power that was covering up all these crimes that were happening. For example, in Florida alone, the number of Epstein's underage victims who filed complaints with the police reached more than 40, and they weren't all just underage girls. Children, that's the disaster. Children, reported to the police. And despite that, there was no real verdict against Epstein. For example, in 2005, despite all these victims, Epstein was only stopped from working. That was the decision they came to. They said why? They said because he exploited a minor who was not yet 14 years old, sexually exploited her. The complaints continued after that as well. In 2008, he was sentenced to 13 months. Why 13 months? They said it was only because he arranged meetings for his clients with underage girls. And for the record, even 13 months. This is the one where he was arrested, but he was never actually in prison. Why do I say this? Because he was allowed to leave and go to his house, only being in prison for certain hours each day. And after 2008 complaints kept pouring into the American authorities, but always without any result. The number reached more than 80 victims, and these are only the ones who went to the authorities and filed complaints. What was hidden was even greater, until 2011 came, talking about 11 more years of crimes, and I found that from 2008 until 2019, all of them were periods of other crimes. So, the important year is 2019. In this year, the real investigation began. The investigation that eventually led to uncovering only, perhaps, a small part of what was going on this island. And for the first time, he was charged with real charges that, according to American law, could lead to a 45-year prison sentence. He was arrested, and his property was seized pending trial. So here, another part of the mystery begins. I mean, what happened one day? In August 2019, America announced that Epstein died by suicide in his cell in Manhattan, where he hanged himself, closing the case. Is this true or not? So here we get into the facts that haven't been revealed and will never be revealed. The facts that might reveal that Epstein didn't actually die, but was smuggled to a third country, where he will live out the rest of his life under a different name and identity as an ordinary citizen away from the public eye. So today, what actually confirms that he really died? If we look at it from a country's perspective, what is the event originally about? It's a set of official documents, meaning we will find that there are indeed strong things that confirm he really passed away. What are these things? What are these things that make everyone today believe this scenario? First, an official autopsy of the body, meaning it was conducted by the forensic doctor. But can't this report be manipulated? Of course it can, especially when we find this doctor. And who is the famous Jewish elder in America? Dr. Michael Baden, who worked on major cases in America. The most important of these cases, for example, is the Kennedy cover-up case. Another thing that also confirms Epstein's death, according to the state's jurisdiction, is whether there is an official death certificate registered in the state's records. Can't that be manipulated? Of course it can. Pay close attention. We're talking about the deep state. We'll cover that. Anything else? The internal prison report? So is it enough for the prison director to be involved? I mean, in this game, the report will be ready? What about the body photos? Of course, these photos remain only in the file. They haven't been shown to the media. Up until now, not a single photo of Epstein's body has been shown. And even if these photos were shown, does that mean such photos can't be fabricated? We won't talk about artificial intelligence and so on, which existed at that time. It was there, they had it. Anyway, we won't talk about that. It would be enough for Epstein to just pretend to be dead, and for the photographs to be taken in that position so they could be presented as evidence or to reinforce this scenario. The suicide scenario. What? Also, they say that the Epstein family received the body, but who is this family? Where is this family? Does a family that was actually close to Epstein really exist? And even if that's the case, couldn't they also be part of this plan or part of this deal? We will release Epstein, but with conditions, because there is a society there, an international order, there is an American society waiting for the law to be enforced, just as it is enforced on him. These are the conditions. That he leaves America under another alias, with a different identity, and that everything is done secretly as if he really died, so that a funeral and ceremonies and so on are held. Add to that the surveillance camera directed at Epstein's cell door, they found it wasn't working. On top of that, the recordings from the other surveillance cameras in the prison were deleted. They didn't find any footage during the hours of monitoring and when this incident happened. So pay close attention. We're talking about a deep state that is involved in everything inside America, and this deep state has strong ties to the Israeli file. Today we talked about the theory of Epstein's assassination. There's a theory that says he was assassinated. It's not over. He was assassinated. So that the secrets that connected him to world leaders or some elites and other things wouldn't be revealed. But in reality, all these secrets are now in the safes of the United States Department of Justice. They have all the tapes, recordings, photos, correspondence, and so on. So there's no need for elimination. Epstein's death doesn't prevent the leaking of such secrets, so it's more likely that he didn't die. He was smuggled out according to arrangements between Mossad and the deep state in America. Pay close attention. Modern history has proven that Israel cannot abandon its agents, even if they are third-rate. So what about someone of such high importance today? A successful figure for them? Of course. Like Epstein, Israel has made agreements and major concessions with various countries just to secure the release of one of its detained agents or spies. So it could never abandon someone like Epstein, not now or ever. The even more important question is, why did the Department of Justice wait all these years until Trump came to lead America? Until this year? Until all these documents are released? Epstein's documents? The investigation was in 2019. The documents and recordings were in 2019. The case was closed in 2019. And today, in 2026, after 6 or 7 years, these documents are being revealed here. Everyone should know that Trump, even though he is the President of America, cannot control the Department of Justice. Trump is the one who appoints the Attorney General, that's true, and he can also appoint senior officials in the department, that's true. But despite that, there are positions he cannot control at all. There is something called the deep state, which is what we're talking about today. There are positions like permanent judges, positions like the Prosecutor General, and senior officials within this department. These people do not change with the change of president, and they have their own agendas that they work according to, a system that has been in place for decades. People like these work against Trump. For example, if just one judge, according to American regulations, issues an order to release documents, those documents will be released. So the matter is not in Trump's hands, nor in the hands of any American president, as much as it is in the hands of the deep state. Therefore, it's certain that there is a purpose behind making them reveal these scandals today. And it's also certain that the one who helped Epstein escape is the same one who released these scandals. So now, the case still holds very big secrets, which may be revealed in the coming weeks and months. So all that's left is for you to write to me in the comments, how do you see this case? Who do you think is behind Epstein? Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. See you next time.